they can publish in English wherever, but I think the Indian market is just funny.
Yeah.
But I think people can order online and get it shipped to India. I just think it's probably cost prohibitive for a lot of people.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. I wish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
The lovely things about books is that the title that you see in the published book seems perfect for the story, but it might not always be the title that you had when you started. Was this your original title? It was from the start.
It was the original title.
Okay.
Yeah. Once I figured out that this was about like somebody being fast and someone wanting to take things slow, I was like, that's it. That's what I don't know. My poor critic partners understand me. I usually like show up with a picture book manuscript and I'm like, okay, now we got to figure out what this is actually about, because I just wrote it like 8 times in a row and like revised it really quickly, but I don't really necessarily have an idea of what I'm trying to say. And then inevitably one of my really smart friends will be like, I think what you're trying to say is this, and I'm like, yes. And then the next revision is about making that happen. Yeah. Or like bringing that out more. But I think it was pretty clear from early on. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question for your father.
Dad,
Is Rajani?
you have a question?
I have a question for you. Is Rajani fast, slow, or just right?
Am I fast, slow, or just right?
Just about right.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought the answer would be. Well, I just wanted to check.
So I just want to tell you the part that like you can't imagine, like you can't envision necessarily when you write a book, when you write just the manuscript, is that the opening spread is this, with him running in front of his grandfather, right? And that the ending spread would be him slowing down. That's like not in the text. That's just something that the illustrator is like, yeah, that makes sense. And that just made me so happy. And that scene, that little, that street that they're on, that is an Indian street, man. Like, I was like, oh my goodness, I think my cousins live there. It was really heartwarming. It's great. Right, Dad? Do you think that looks like a street in India?
Look at that page, just get it. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Is this your 3rd book with a recipe?
Oh,
At least.
You got a lot of books with recipes.
might be my 4th. I'm trying to think. Midsummer's Mayhem and Much Ado About Baseball both
Yeah.
have recipes in them. But Secret of the Dragon Gems also has a recipe in
Oh,
it.
I haven't seen it.
And then there's this. I don't think
Anything else coming up?
any of the picture books have recipes in them. One of them has a map.
There's a map coming.
There's a map coming. No, there's also a picture book. Where the Ocean's Beat had a map in
That's
it.
true.
Yeah. No, I'm obsessed with food. I just wrote I'm sorry to tell you, critique partners, that I wrote an entire chapter of my way novel that is all about food. I'm like, they're gonna read this and be like, where is this story going? What is happening in here? Why is she so obsessed with food? I'm like, because it's important.
It's kind of like Moby Dick had entire chapters around
It's a
rope
station
time.
Exactly. It's like knots
Yeah,
and food.
yes.
Yeah, but my chapters are way more interesting. I would rather read about
Yeah.
food than knot tying. Yeah. Yeah.
Another question.
Yeah.
So just curious, I know that you have several books with Candlewick. Are they all, well, they're all independent titles, but do you sell them as multiple books, or you sell them individually?
Independently and individually. So I'll Go and Come Back was my first book with Candlewick. It was the first book we sold in March 2018. It came out in 2022.
Right.
I think it came out exactly 4 years after we sold it. It was pretty crazy. But that's they work slowly. But it's
Slowly.
but it's worth it. It's worth it. It cannot be rushed. They just do things slowly, but they do a great job. So my first book, I'll Go and Come Back, is about a grandmother and a granddaughter, and then this one is about a grandson and a grandmother and granddaughter. This is about a grandson and a grandfather. And then my next one with them that's coming next year is called Monty and Me, and is about a little girl and her auntie, her favorite auntie, and her cousin from out of town shows up, and she's a little jealous because she's taking her spot with her favorite auntie. So, and then I have a 4th book which has not been announced, that has nothing to do with any of these books, and really has nothing to do with family members either, which is shocking to me. So we'll see when that comes out. I don't know if that'll be 25 or 26.
Did you have summer Summers for Cousins.
That's with Abrams.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've got all
That
kinds of
should
people
be- yeah,
all over
that
the place.
should be
Yeah,
a Kindle.
yeah. There's a lot of relative mining to be done. Yes.
Is it the same editor at Candlewick?
Yes, yes. Andrea Tompa, she's wonderful. She's just got a great sensibility and gets
You
it.
do seem to know which of those publishers that you've worked with in the past are going to like a particular new book. How do you know? And did you know this was the right fit for Candlewick? Like, did you know that?
Yeah.
And why? What was it about this where you say, okay, this is the kind of book they want?
Yeah, I mean, they at least for me, they've liked kind of heartwarming family stories.
Mhm.
That seems to be the thing that they're into in terms of my writing. And I really love working with them. They make beautiful books, as you can tell. So we were like, we'll show it to them first and see what they think. So we only showed it to them for this one. So that was exciting. Yeah, that sometimes happens, and I think that other publishers are more willing to take a risk with more bonkers things. And
I'm sorry, I should know, but I'm forgetting. Are your two nonfiction science books from the same publisher? They're not,
no, one is with Little B.
right?
So they did Secret Code Inside
Yeah.
You, and then Vaccine, which is good. And then Your One and Only Heart is with a different publisher, Dial Books at Penguin
Okay.
Random House. So that's like a completely,
Yeah.
that was a new publisher and a new editor for me. But she loved it, and she had a vision for it, which that's what it takes, is like the right person to have the vision for your story, and then it ends up somehow in the right place. Yeah, it's wild. It's been a strange but wonderful journey. Yeah.
You said that the first spread and the final spread, the illustrator had come up with that. Did you have other illustration notes? Like the kitchen, I noticed that I think she had like a whole layout for the kitchen of mine. You get a bunch of different angles on it.
Yes.
But
Yes. So the one thing that I was just like, we have to be careful because he's a little kid. I was like, he can't be like near a flame by himself. Like somebody else needs to be around. I'm like, even if he's an experienced like cook, like that's not probably something we want to encourage. And then there were just kind of, so, you know, it's really interesting. One of the things we think about in picture books is like page turns. And at one point I was like, you know what? None of the very often you're like, oh, he tried this, and then you turn the page, but it ended up like that. And I talked to my editor and I was like, we don't have page turns like that. We have the like results, the negative results of his experimentation right on the page. So let me show you. Arav couldn't wait. Daddy helped him gather ingredients. Arav dumped everything into a pot, picturing Tata's face when he tasted it. Now, in a different kind of picture book, you might have to turn the page. But all he made was a big mess. But we talked it through, and she goes, I understand what you're saying, but that's not what we're not going for a laugh in this book. It's just like, okay, he tried it, and then this happened, and it didn't work out. And then we turn the page to see what he does next after he fails in this attempt. And I was like, okay, because we weren't going for like a joke or like, you know, that kind of thing. So it was very interesting to think about the pacing in that way. And illustrators always put in family pets. I never ask for them. So this one has a cute little white dog that's running around with them, which I thought was cute. And I did, in the original draft of this book, I did mention the sister, and like she was helping and all that stuff too. And then we just eliminated her from the text, but she was very much present in all the illustrations. And I just thought, she's just the cutest. And she's got little toys that she plays with too. I think she might have like a dog toy in addition to the actual dog, and so the cuteness is multiplied. So it's really sweet. I also the illustrator is from India, so she like knew a lot about I didn't have to explain how you drew Basari. I didn't have to talk about what they might like, whether they are wearing bindis or not. And so a lot of this stuff is just really she already knew. She put the snacks on the table that are very common snacks that you have with tea, and the milky ribbon she totally got right. So I was like, that's, I didn't have to explain any of those things. It's a bunny toy. So there's like the white bunny toy and the white doggy running around. So yeah, it just and look at the expression on the dog's face. He's so excited about this chai, like way more excited than any dog has the right to be. Our dog doesn't care when we're making chai. Yeah, so and that house, like that is totally, yeah. So there were a lot of things I didn't have to explain. It was just mainly around safety. I was like, please, let's make sure that no child is going to do this by themselves without parents helping.
One other little thing she did that I noticed is that when he finally is patient and he's waiting, the dog is up on the little stool that he's on, and the dog being a little bit impatient is a contrast to him finally finding his patience. Like look at how.
Oh, the dog is like, what's going on?
Yeah, the dog is expectant.
He's quivering a little bit. He's a little quivery. Look, he's even impatient on the. So sweet. Yes, we have a little dog who, if you left a pile of cookies around, he might be interested in them too.
Oh, sure.
Yes, but not the chai. He's not really interested in the chai. Anyone else?
I
Yeah.
was just curious. So do you paginate when you're writing typically, and do you submit it that way, or do you usually take that out?
So when I first draft, I don't bother paginating unless there's like a specific structure that I know I'm going to follow. So for example, with Your One and Only Heart, I knew that I had 7 pairs of poems, so I knew that each poem was going to be on a different spread. So well, and that wasn't the first. I mean, that book took like 5 years, 10 years. I mean, 10 years to come out, but like 5 years to even figure out how in the world to write it. So, but when I first draft something, I just write the story, and then I revise it a bunch of times, and then before I send it to my really patient critique partners, I usually paginate it to just make sure that there's, like, it makes sense, that I'm not stuffing too much into the story. And the other thing is that you don't repeat the same setting too many times, so that there's something interesting to illustrate on each spread. And then I go through it, and when I revise it, I usually revise it with the pages in, but then when I send it to my agent, I get rid of the pages. And then, unless there's something really that I need to happen in the illustrations that I didn't put in the text, I don't usually write a lot of illustration notes. But I don't know what the editor sends to illustrators. I have no idea whether they just take out all the illustration notes or like what the deal is with that. It's a mystery. And sometimes I'm like, maybe I should ask them. Like, maybe I shouldn't ask. Maybe I don't need to know this, and it's okay this way. Yeah. Like, it seems to be working fine without my knowing that, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear ya.
Yeah.
How often do you use mentor texts when you're thinking about structure?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. So I feel like I use mentor texts more often with novels than with picture books. Although every once in a while, so I guess it's not really necessarily a mentor text way of doing it, but I do tend to like read a bunch of picture books at one time and then like be inspired by them. And then I don't necessarily write a picture book similar to one of those like immediately, but later on I will write a picture book and I will realize what the inspiration was, and then I'm like, oh, that's where that came from. Because sometimes I think you just need to know that something is possible for you to feel free to do it, because otherwise you're like, this is just a crazy idea, and you're like, but no, remember I read that other picture book and they seemed to not think it was crazy. It seemed to work for them. So yeah, it's interesting. But I do sometimes, especially when it's like rhyme, like a rhyming picture book that is really clever and also does something other than rhyme, like Carrie's book, Dozens of Donuts, where she like does all these mathematical concepts in this beautiful rhyming and has an amazing page turn. The kids are like, ding dong, like it's so, oh my gosh. Every once in a while I'll go back and I'll read books like that and be like, let's dissect this and figure out how exactly that works, because it's so cool. And ultimately you realize that it's a lot of work, right? It's not like you just woke up one day and were like, aha, here's the book, it's perfect, right? Yeah.
No, that was a lot of drums.
Yeah, so I think I would say I read more for inspiration than necessarily taking a book and saying I'm gonna model it after that. But with novels, I take other stories and I'm like, okay, what are the plot elements of this story and how do I translate that into something that I want to put in a novel? And what do I keep and what do I leave? Because there are things that you definitely want to leave. I think that's a wrap. Thank you so much, everyone.